Hi, everyone, and welcome to our Building the Unbreachable Security webinar. My name is Gianna Boykin, and I will be your moderator today. Before we get started, we have a few housekeeping items to go over. Today's session will be recorded. If you are not comfortable with this, please disconnect. We will be sending out the recording following the event. For any questions you have during today's webinar, please use the Q&A box on the right-hand side of your screen. If the questions are related to the presentation, we will answer those at the end. We've also added some additional documents on the right-hand side of your screen entitled Docs for more information. I am excited to introduce you to Arun Dorairajan, Head of Pre-Sales North America. Arun?
Thank you, Gianda. Hi, everyone. I'm Arun Dorairajan, Director of Solutions Architecture for North America at Axway, and I really appreciate you carving out your time to be here. Over the next 30 minutes, we're going to be tackling something that's keeping CISOs, architects, infrastructure leads, security leads up at night. How to stop data breaches before they start, and more importantly, how to build systems that are not just reactive, but resilient by design. So this isn't a session about buzzwords or theoretical 0 days. It's going to be about 4 clear practical strategies that you can actually implement across both MFT and APIs, which we believe are 2 core channels where we at Axway think there are going to be most of your sensitive data flows and where attackers are increasingly looking to strike. So let's get into it. Let's get to this reality. These aren't edge cases. There are major brands with sophisticated teams, and they're still hit hard. From Trello to T-Mobile to Hugging Face, these breaches all have one thing in common. They didn't stem from complex zero-day attacks. They happened because of basic API failures, poor authentication, overexposed endpoints, and leaked tokens. And it's not just about APIs. Kronos lost 25 million due to exposed API keys. And that's not just a coding error, that's a business impact event. And Optus, 11 million records exposed through a single endpoint. Now, that's what we call a trust crisis. So you can read this at the takeaways from 5 API breaches, which we'll share later. APIs do get a lot of attention, but what about file transfers? They're quietly becoming one of the most exploited attack surfaces recently in enterprise software. Take MoveIt, over 2,100 organizations hit by ransomware, not because of negligence, but because file transfer workflows are often out of sight, out of scope for security teams. And it's not just one-off exploits. 70% of vulnerabilities in the last 5 years were labeled high risk, and over 5 million records were exposed through them. Even worse, you got Go Anywhere instances that were still running vulnerable versions a month after public disclosure. So this isn't just a technology gap, it's a visibility and control gap. And that is why we are focusing on these 2 pillars today, APIs and file movement. And that's where sensitive data flows. And when they are mishandled, they are also where breaches begin. Now, let's talk about what's really at stake when these APIs and file transfers go unprotected. Breaches are not just technical problem, they're a financial time bomb. The average US breach now costs 9.48 million. And that's not just fines. It's lost trust, lost business, and long recovery cycles. It takes almost 277 days to even identify and contain a breach. We'll talk about that more. Now, that's almost a year of exposure. And every exposed record, $165, multiply that by 1 million leaked records, and you can see why attackers love targeting the edge. This is why visibility and control at the data integration edge, where your APIs and file flows live, is no longer optional. It's your new frontline. And it's not just about fines anymore. According to Forrester, by 2025, breach-related class action costs will actually surpass regulatory fines by 50%. Why? Because the damage doesn't stop at compliance. It hits your customers, your partners, your brand. 12 trillion. That's the projected global cost of cybercrime this year. Over 1.5 billion records were exposed just from the top 35 branches, and 2.6 billion in fines were levied in 2023 alone. And the kicker, attackers aren't always coming for you directly. They're coming through your vendors, your file exchange, your APIs, the parts of your business that are often out of sight. And that's why we just don't need better tools. We need a better strategy. So, what I'm going to do in the next 20 minutes or so, I'm going to walk you through 4 practical strategies that can help you safeguard your data and not just patch vulnerabilities after it's too late. So we've seen the risks. We could go where we could go wrong. We've seen the consequences and the costs associated with it. But let's now talk about 4 strategies that work, that take you from being reactive to being resilient. When it comes to protecting data in motion, whether it's API powering your digital channels or files flowing through critical systems and third-party systems, there's no silver bullet. But there is a smarter, more practical path forward. And it starts with 4 core strategies, real world proven approaches that we have seen succeed across industries and infrastructure models. Zero trust architecture, not a buzzword, but a shift in mindset. Assume a breach, verify everything, and minimize exposure. Discover, validate, and protect. You can't secure what you can't see. This is about finding unmanaged assets, locking them down with policies and governance. Enhanced threat detection, not just about logging, it's about seeing early warning signs and responding before the damage is done. And finally, strengthening your third party risk management. Because remember, breaches don't always happen inside your walls. They're often started with partners, vendors, or unsecured file exchanges. So that said, let's get into the strategies. Let's start by talking about the first of our 4 strategies, zero trust. Zero trust means exactly what it says. Never trust, always verify. It's a layered security model that assumes every request is potentially hostile. So let's look at zero trust in the most relatable way possible. So I want to take an analogy here. Think of it like a hotel. Everyone looks relaxed. Poolside chairs, cozy beds, open lounges. But here's the reality. You just don't walk into any room or jump into the pool without verifying who you are. You check in at the front desk, you're given an access card, and you have access only to parts that you've booked or have been approved for. The hotel doesn't assume that just because you're inside, you're allowed everywhere. That is zero trust. It's not about making things harder. It's about controlling things in an intelligent manner. And here's how zero trust plays out in that hotel model. Each resource is isolated. So if you think about it, rooms, the pool, the gym, they all have access controls. Even if you want to go to a restaurant that you've paid, if you're not paid for, you're going to be asked that are you part of an elite member that you have access to enter in this area for the lounge and to get access to that. Least privilege access. You only get key to your room, not the master key to every door. Identity is always verified, whether it's the front desk or scanning your key card at the elevator. Yet the experience remains smooth. Guests feel welcome, but behind the scenes, controls are tight. And this is the same principle we apply to our APIs and file transfer flows. So let's get from metaphor to maturity. We now that we have grounded zero tests in a trust in a simple analogy, let's translate it to what it really means in your architecture. Now, this is based on CISA's trust maturity model, and it's more than just identity and firewalls. So, as anything, right, it starts with who, the who. Identify least access, privilege access is foundational. So, you need to know who and provide the least privilege. And that's how you start off with. You trust nobody, verify always. Then we move on to which devices, verifying endpoints at every touch point. Where is it happening? Assume a breach, watch the network traffic, especially across hybrid clouds. Then, what is being accessed? Think APIs, apps, files, apply dynamic policies. And finally, ask yourself, why is this needed? And secure the data itself through encryption, tokenization, and access control. Now, we're talking about how we should go about doing it in a zero trust model. I want to bring you how we do zero trust, how we bring zero trust to life with Axway. How do we actually implement it without you buying 5 different tools or building it all yourself? Across identity, devices, networks, application, and data, Axway provides a unified security and governance layer. From OAuth token validation to rate limiting on APIs to file encryption and policy-based routing, it's all built in. And the best part here, you can run it all on Axway's managed cloud. That means we handle the infrastructure, the scaling, the patching, the compliance, and you get to focus on your business while still enforcing zero trust. We make secure files and API exchange not just possible, but easy. So entrusting Axway to help your APIs and file movement gives you that peace of mind. What I've highlighted in red here is what we do out of the box for all our users who are on Axway Managed Cloud. So you have zero trust architecture right out of the box set in our platform. Moving on, let's talk about our second pillar, which I feel is equally important or as important. Discover, validate, protect. Now, the number 92 is very important here. I know you can't give me feedback, but you can type it. What does 92 mean here? If anyone can guess. So let me elaborate on that number. 92% is the number of organizations that use APIs to connect with partners, customers, or internal services. But only a fraction of them actually track or audit their full API inventory. Now that's pretty big, right? And we'll talk about how we got this from the survey. The important thing here is you have limited visibility into your inventory and you don't know what APIs exist. So you can't protect what you can't see. That's important to note here. You need to know if you what you can't see, you can't protect those. That's also important to know that. And this visual, I wanted to have this, it represents it all. What we see here on the top is just the explosion, the API attack surface. But what causes it lies beneath, and it's what most organizations don't see or manage well. Unmanaged APIs include shadow, zombie, legacy APIs, which never get discovered. There's lack of visibility into who's accessing what and when. There are weeks since you don't know which APIs exist. You don't know if there is security policies applied, or even if they are, they're inconsistent. And there is a constant growing complexity of hybrid environments, partner APIs, and legacy systems. So there is a growing complexity there. And without visibility into all of this, that builds pressure until one misconfiguration, one leak token, one exposed endpoint triggers the blast. So let's talk about these unmanaged APIs. Let's go a little deeper into that. These are APIs that no one's watching, but attackers love. And they're called unmanaged APIs, and they usually fall into one of these three creepy categories. Zombie APIs. I know the name, just like the name suggests, these APIs have long died, long deprecated, but they're still roaming in your production environments. They're often unsupported, unpatched, and one bad call away from a breach. Shadow APIs. These APIs are in use, but they are invisible to your IT infrastructure teams. They bypass your API gateways, monitoring tools, and security policies entirely. And then you got the good old legacy APIs. They have been replaced officially, but still quietly power most of your critical workflows. And nobody's touched them in years. Together, these lost APIs are like forgotten doors to your system. They lack updates, patches, visibility, and make you an easy target. And this is the reality. And I wanted to show you a bar here, a chart that shows how almost half of organizations today say the number one challenge is API sprawl. And the sprawl is happening because of APIs spread everywhere, unmanaged APIs, and APIs in different cloud providers' environments as well. And if you look at the rest, 37% can't even maintain an accurate inventory of their APIs. 30% worry about third party access, and only 24 can risk rank APIs. So it's like running a city with no map, no zoning rules, and no fire department, but you still hand out the keys to everyone. And this is why discovery is foundational, because if you don't know what's running, who's using it, and what it's exposing, you're not protecting anything. So this is where Axway shines. Let's talk about how this actually works, not in theory, but in execution. With Axway's solution, Axway's Amplify solution, you don't just bolt on security, you bake in your entire API lifecycle across on-prem, multi-cloud, hybrid environments, and even APIs managed by other teams or platforms. And here's how we do it, and we support it through three different pillars. We start with Discover. Axway's Amplify automatically uncovers unmanaged shadow APIs across different landscapes. It also brings in APIs that you have in every API gateway, even a managed API. There are APIs hiding behind team boundaries in legacy platforms or unmanaged cloud regions. So what this does is it eliminates blind spots and gives you a complete, accurate, and inventory. Then we move on to validate. Once discovered, you need to ensure that these APIs are right? These APIs are really meant to be where they are supposed to be. Maybe they need to be discarded. Maybe they need to be removed. But if not, we need to add centralized policies like OAuth2, schema validation, rate limiting, access throttling, and apply them in a consistent basis, regardless of where the API is hosted. And finally, protect. We go beyond static rules. We offer real-time protection with tokenization, IP limiting, volume anomaly detection, and usage thresholds. Plus, full visibility into who's access what, when, and how. And the best part about this is you can manage it all from a single pane of glass, one platform for discovery, governance, analysis, and enforcement across all your APIs and teams. And that's how Amplify brings order to chaos and security to the edge. Now, I want to quickly talk about a customer use case, a quick customer story. One of our global energy customers had APIs running across 5 different gateways managed by multiple teams with zero central visibility. So they used Amplify to discover every API, no matter where it lived. They applied central validation rules to ensure consistency and compliance. And then they enabled protective controls, throttling, tokenization, anomaly alerts across different entire flow. So what was the result? 40% reduction in redundant APIs and traffic, improving performance with lower latency. And perhaps most impressively, they passed 2 back-to-back security audits that they had been failing before with zero findings. That's the power of having one platform built for hybrid complexity that helps you discover, validate, and protect at scale. Now, let's talk about strategy 3. This is about enhancing your threat detection and response. Now, can anyone guess what the 204 days is? That is the number of days the average breach goes undetected. And if you remember from my earlier slide, it takes 277 days in total to discover and contain. Now, that's a very painful statistic. This means, on an average, it takes businesses over 6 months to discover that a cyber attack has been successfully infiltrated into their systems. And in that time, the damage is done. So what do? We believe, to be honestly, it's all about fewer but smarter signals. The last thing you want is your security team to have hundreds and hundreds of alerts. So modern threat detection is not just about noise. It's about smarter signals. It starts by establishing a baseline of what's normal. So first, we got to baseline normal API patterns. Who accesses what, when, and how often? Expected activities. So for your MFD, file transferred by which users to which partners and at what frequency. And then we flag for anomalies. We look for certain spikes in data volume, access from an unusual geography, repeated failed authentication attempts, or a new consumer calling an old endpoint for the first time in 18 months. But detection alone is not enough. The power lies in correlation. When these signals converge, for an example, a new API, a new IP hitting new high volumes endpoint with expired credentials, that's when you act. This is different from between knowing something happened and catching it before it becomes a headline. So how can I want to give you an example of how Axway helped a logistic firm. We worked with a logistic firm and saw strange uptake in weekend transfers. And on the surface, it looked like business as usual. Nothing broke, no firewall alerts. But then we layered in Axway's threat context and the picture changed. These transfers were using a compromised set of credentials from an inactive partner and triggered an IP range outside their normal activities. The result, they shut it down before a sensitive document left the system. And that's not just detection, that's defense in context. So, in my opinion, and Axway, you just don't think alerts, think context, think patterns, think response time. Now, let's cover the fourth piece, third-party risk, because in 2025, you're not just defending your own perimeter anymore. It's about your partners, your vendors, and the entire digital supply chain. Because attackers don't care who they hit first. They just need one unlocked door. And too often, the door looks like a trusted third-party integration. Let's give you an example, the SolarWinds breach, a textbook example of supply chain attack. SolarWinds were trusted by thousands of organizations and government agencies, and its Orion software had deep access, log performance metrics, internal systems. So when an attacker compromised just one software update, they didn't just breach SolarWinds, they infiltrated every single customer downstream. Malicious code flowed freely because trust was assumed. So the lesson to learn here is your security is only as strong as your weakest integration. So what can you do? Start by flipping the script. Don't just trust, verify continuously. Monitor partner access patterns just like you monitor internal users. Require software bill of materials to know what's under the hood with every integration. Build dashboards that just don't show traffic, but show what data is moving and who's going to do what and when. And guess what? Third-party files and API drops are where the secure items have the least visibility. That's the most dangerous blind spot. And here's where we can help you close. At Axway, we'll give you the visibility and control to manage third-party risk at the edge where most breaches happen. Whether it's a file drop at midnight or API key misuse from a trusted vendor, Axway makes sure you see it, respond to it, and stay compliant. Because in a connected world, third-party risk is your risk, and we are here to help you. So we're almost at the end, and let me recap. Let's bring it home. So what you have seen here isn't just a best practice, it's a strategy journey to defend your most critical data flows. So it's how we move from reactive to resilient, and it's what the most secure organizations are already prioritizing in 2025. Step 1, embrace zero trust architecture. Step 2, discover, validate, and protect. Step 3, enhance threat detection. And finally, step 4, strengthen your third-party risk assessment. With Axway, you will gain visibility into external connections, enforce zero trust at the edge, and mitigate third-party risk without slowing your business down. So before we wrap up, I'll leave you with just one thing. Security isn't just a checkbox. It's a culture, a mindset, a strategy. And the most important thing, it's a team sport. So whether you're tackling API chaos, hardening your MFT flows, or just trying to sleep better at night, I hope today give you clarity, direction, and practical next step. So let's keep the conversation going. You can scan the QR code to get connected to me via LinkedIn. I would love to hear from you. So thank you for your time. Stay safe, stay smart, and stay resilient. Thank you.